Canada's trade deal with the United States of America is now at risk because of a swift decline in diplomacy.
I fart in your general direction. Your mother was a hamster and your father smelt of elderberries.
Is there someone else up there we could talk to?
No, you've been talking to the ones in charge, and Canada has only itself to blame in this scenario. Concerned Canadians saying Carney failed exactly what he was voted to do. He was voted in for this to be the guy, the Trump whisperer. Don't you recall that in the news? That's what he was. Now, the Western Standard reporting on this saying you don't insult your biggest customer. Ottawa's diplomatic failure with Trump. Justin Trudeau and Mark Carney treated Donald Trump as a political foil. Now, Canada faces the risk of losing the trade relationship that underpins its prosperity. You're not going to be going over to Europe and China and replacing the United States as a trading partner. It's just not going to happen. And to keep bouncing on that rhetoric is just unbelievably irresponsible across the board. If President Trump decides against renewing the USMCA, the Canadian economy will enter a rapid, uncontrollable downward spiral. None of Prime Minister Carney's trade agreements or multiple MOUs, memorandums of understanding, which aren't legally required, they're not legally binding documents, will be sufficient to offset what will happen. The lack of diplomacy, etiquette by two Canadian prime ministers means their chickens will have to come home to roost. And this is the growing opinion around Canada. It seems to be a little bit on the late side, but it's not just Mark Carney that deserves some of the blame. Yeah, it's even provincial leaders. That's right. I got Doug Ford here and his big, tall, dumb cousin from the West Coast, David Eby, some of the worst at doing any of this stuff. Now, their popularity is dwindling. The big boon they got from the Orange Man bad scare is it seems to have waned. Ford and Eby sink to the bottom of approval polls. Ford's approval rating hit a new personal low after dropping to just 21%, marking the Premier's worst rating in 8 years. Is a continuous decline as more people are starting to wake up to the fact that this guy's strategies are not helping us any. They're actually making life much, much worse for the people in the affected areas, which, of course, I mean, he's sabotaging all of Canada at this point, because America is looking at the strategy of banning alcohol from Canada, from Ontario, from British Columbia. They're looking at that and they're saying, you know what, we're losing our patience with you. And Donald Trump already lost all of his patience. He's now saying that he's more up to terminating the USMCA than he is on negotiating anything at all.
How long do you hope USMCA negotiations or review go on?
Well, it's not something that's, to me, I think it's better without it. I mean, to be honest with you, I'm not a big fan of it. I liked it because it got us out of NAFTA. In other words, after 6 years, you had a clause that got us out of NAFTA. That's the thing I liked about it most. We do better without an agreement.
Do you want to just leave it enrolling?
I would rather leave it unsigned. I'd rather have it terminated.
You'd rather have it terminated? Oh, those are different things, sir. I just want to be clear.
I would rather not have the agreement, but I may sign it.
Right.
But we do better as a country if we don't have an agreement.
So are you thinking of...
Yeah, I'm thinking about maybe we won't be able to make a deal. I would rather not have the USMCA. The primary reason I wanted it was because there was no way out of NAFTA, which was the worst trade agreement ever made, like ever. And they had no termination. And it was very hard to get USMCA for that reason. And I had a 6-year clause. Who would have thought I would have been here in the 6 years? They got it 6 years because they hoped I wouldn't be here. My term was supposed to be over with. So on top of everything else that comes to, I would prefer not having an agreement, but I'm open to doing it. We'll see what happens.
So as of now,
So open to doing it, but the actual, here's Trump repeating himself once again, saying that the whole reason for getting out of NAFTA and bringing the USMCA in the first place was so that there would be a termination clause, so that any of the three parties, the Mexico, Canada, or the United States, could jump in and at any point give 6 months notice to leave the agreement entirely and terminate it. All incredibly changing the course of history for Canada, that's for sure. because things wouldn't work out so well. But what is Canada doing in response to this? Are they saying, okay, Uncle, we'll yield, we'll lift some of our trade barriers and restrictions for American companies coming into no, they're not doing that at all. No, here's City News Toronto saying the Canadian government is slapping a 10% surtax on global imports of canned vegetables in a bid to protect Canadian industries and strengthen the economy in a rapidly changing global trade environment. What does that mean? That means that the Canadian government is slapping tariffs on anything that comes in that's a canned vegetable, probably, most likely, mostly from the United States of America, raising the price of the average Canadian's groceries once again, because, there might be a few items, but they're just going to blanket tariff them. That's crazy. Ryan Garrettson pointing out here, Canadians will hold U.S. to account by their experience, or hold us to account by their experience at the grocery stores, says Mark Carney. Guess who will pay the tariff? That's right, Canadians will pay this. A 10% surcharge on items that aren't Canadian. Wow, that's definitely not going to piss the Americans off even more. A reminder that tariffs are bad, okay? Yeah, tariffs are bad. We keep hearing about that until except when the Canadian government uses tariffs, because they're so happy to do so. Well, guess what? This is really irritating the Americans at this point. And even the ambassador to the United States, Hoekstra, is just tired of this. He appeared on Ellie's show, and I could leave a link in the description down below. Go watch the whole thing. But here's a fantastic clip of him saying, this is crazy that the Canadians are behaving this way. We've been so good to them for so long. And, finally, this is the first year ever Mark Carney has put money into the defense spending. It's the first year in 37 years that Canada has done this. And yet they still have this crazy attitude.
For 37 years, somebody's been carrying the water in terms of protecting Canada. And I think I know who that country is.
Yeah, we think so.
And I don't necessarily, but I will go back to it. Okay? With that kind of a record, you're going to boo the flag that for 37 years, has provided the backstop to Canadian security and safety. And I know you were with us in Afghanistan, and you've made other sacrifices, and we appreciate those each and every day. But for the consistent pattern of 37 years, it was American taxpayers, okay, that willingly, because they love Canada, that willingly paid for us to backstop Canada, okay? It was the distillers in Kentucky that make the bourbon and the whiskey. They paid those taxes for 37 years that you now ban from being sold in Canada.
So he's talking about the taxes, federal income taxes to the U.S. government that went into military spending that protected Canada. And now those companies are being banned for their efforts. This is just absolutely crazy. But this is what's going on. And not only this, it's this whole thing is destroying the idea of the Gordie Howe Bridge in Windsor, Detroit, of opening up, because America has demands and they say, you're not meeting them. That's
John.
it.
Thanks a lot, Caroline. Yesterday, the president on social media threatened to block the new Gordie Howe Bridge, which would connect Detroit to Canada. This is a bridge that was fully paid for by Canada. It used American labor to construct it. It used American steel to construct that bridge. The president in 2017 was actually in favor of this bridge, part of a joint statement that he put out when he met with the Canadian Prime Minister. Why has the president changed his mind as it relates to this bridge?
I think the president was very clear and direct in his truth, John, but just to reiterate, the fact that Canada will control what crosses the Gordie Howe Bridge and owns the land on both sides is unacceptable to the president. It's also unacceptable that more of this bridge isn't being built with more American-made materials, even more so than what President Barack Obama committed to with the Canadians at the time, at the start of the project. He also believes that the U.S. should own at least half of the bridge, have shared authority over what passes across it, and participate in the economic benefits generated by its use. This is just another example of President Trump putting America's interests first, and so he made that very clear in his call with Prime Minister Carney earlier today.
It really just, it comes across as unbelievable when Canadians have this attitude that they're just entitled to have access to the United States economy. This is the reality of the situation. Canada is a foreign country to the United States of America. Canada treats America and American businesses as foreign entities. This is how it should go the other way around. So on the idea of reciprocal trade, Canada's been pretty bad along the whole stretch here. So putting tariffs on American products. Now the United States, the USMCA protects 85% of Canadian goods going into the United States of America. Without that, Canadian businesses are going to be forced to probably take their business and move it to the United States. Now, that won't be easy for mining operations, things like that, but it would be for, brick and mortar or retailers, things like this. So we're yet to see. We're yet to see what might happen with this, but it looks like the Canadian people in charge, Mark Carney, or even on the provincial side of things, have not been really doing a good job, and in fact have been shooting themselves in their own foot in this whole negotiation. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think. And of course, we'll see you in the next one. Keep on trucking.